actually here that could be signing. It's not exactly what I was thinking I was getting.
First round signing bonus. What's that up to now? 40 million?
Let's get started. We will convene the Board of Education study session at 5:30. Kathy, you want to get us started?
Sure. First, I'd like to, especially for those who are just joining us for the first time, turn your attention to this document. It's an Excel sheet for you with multiple columns, and this is something that we reviewed during our last study session, identifying in green areas that will generate additional funds and endeavors through which additional funds will be generated in order to complete the facility need, including E-rate or Prop 39 allocations. And then in pink, highlighted in pink are some rather urgent needs that we've identified, a couple of which have already been scheduled to move forward. And in yellow, we have a couple of new items, and they are, this is a living document, we are continuing to gather information and add it to this document to identify the facility needs from each of our sites and throughout the district. What we were able to do between the last time and this time is work with the Monrovia High School team and to specifically focus on athletics and to look at all the needs and resources in athletics, not just in terms of facilities, but also equipment, uniforms, as well as, of course, facility. And Randy, our athletic director and overachiever, developed a 10-year plan in multiple sports. And we've tried to develop a little bit of a grid for that. The highlighted areas are facility related. Those in green, listed in green, affect more than one sport. Red is a safety related item, and blue is a high item cost. So in neither of these have we gone beyond the first level of prioritization. But I want to give you a few minutes to just review it, and then let's see. Kirk, Randy, Phil, do either of you want to talk to these items?
Real quick, while we're doing this, Connie, if you can add up on this sheet how much we have under each of these categories, how much in the green and pink, and if we can.
Because we work with these two documentation with each other. For the facility pieces, the seal, which is marked yellow, the first year I already incorporated here. Okay, but I did not include in the supply. Supply, which means the safety equipment and the uniform, I did not include it because this is really not the facility. But however, there's a total here. It's maybe a little smaller for the first year.
Okay, we'll do that one separate.
Yeah.
Let me go in order here if we can.
Okay.
Since this is going to be our ongoing living document, which is based on capital needs, not maintenance, which I would consider uniforms and other disposable items, ongoing basis. We know that it's going to need to be used, a consumable. Let's call it a consumable. So as we go through this, If we can continuously put a key down on the bottom so we can quickly reference how much we are in each category, I think it'll help speed things up as far as our 3 different categories for now, which I'm going to use as the green, the pink, and the white. I know we have a third one, which is the goldenrod, but that's just really kind of notating a new addition. Is that correct? So if we can just keep those 3 as a running total, and then we'll keep the yellow as the new additions as new studies come on, so we can see where those are. If those new additions are also deemed to be a green or a pink, if we can just notate them and put them in the appropriate categories, and the yellow is more to be a notator so we can just see that they're additions. Okay? And if not, I'm going to assume they're going to be in the whites. Great. And then as we get to this, 10 years, which is phenomenal. I'll be glad if we can get through 3. But how did you pick 10? Was there a reason for 10?
That's what Connie asked me to do.
Perfect answer. Okay. No. That's good. I just wanted to know why, because if there's reasons that are going out multiple years, I want to make sure that we're taking those into consideration. If that is just the time frame that we had, then that's great. If there's things that are popping out that are outside of the timelines we're talking about, please make sure we know so we can budget accordingly.
Sort of in a larger scope answer to your question is we've been hoping for more help. And so I was working with Phil since the fall, submitted a smaller expense budget for safety supplies and equipment, desired budget, and then filled out, started with this, but it was annual expenses, 2 to 5 year expenses, and 6 to 10 year expenses for every sport. It was not this specific, but a lot of the same, almost all of the same stuff was on it. And then Connie said, could you make it more specific, 10 years out, and prioritize so that the district knows what's most urgent. The other thing I would say to this group that several people have heard already is I did not prepare this to throw at the district and say, here's what we need. I prepared this in the spirit of the district knowing what our teams deal with from year to year and have been dealing with from year to year. Our teams have been doing all of this pretty much, and as a way to convey that we need more help.
And I get that. I take it that way. This is perfect to present it in. This is what it takes. And just the red safety items for 17, 18 grand are just over $25,000.
I know. That's why I'm starting to eyeball this.
No, I don't take it in any way that you're saying. Here's what you have to do. I don't take that at all. I don't think
exactly. Let's be clear. The board has asked for this. We're not saying, anything other than that. We need to know what the responsibilities are that you're doing. We need to know what the safety concerns are. We need to know what plant and equipment are going to be. We need to know and be able to plan for the consumables and have a game plan on how we're going to do this. Is this going to be something that's going to be in a site budget? Is it going to continue to be done by boosters? We've run into some issues this year that I just don't think we should have run into. So we need to have a better feel for what's going on and why, and get everybody on the same page.
Just like I would never have known that cheer uniforms every year,
Exactly, and there's a number of items in here that we want to make sure we're understanding what is required and what is wanted. There's a huge difference, and there's nothing wrong with wanting things as long as there's a clear understanding and agreement as to how those things are going to be taken care of. So, you know, again, the purpose of this is for a meeting of the minds, so as everybody walks out, we're on the same page. And if there's misunderstandings, this is where they need to come up. If there's questions or conflicting stories or whatever, this is where they need to come up so we can get everybody right. We need to do our budgets, and we need to have clear understandings of needs versus wants. So, you know, safety issues are needs. Cheerleading outfits every season, that may be a want. Maybe you'll tell me different. So, why don't we've gone through this, so real quick, are there any major changes to our overall budget plan, other than the goldenrod on the back page? Or are there any new changes that the board needs to be aware of? Reclassifications or?
No, there's no new major change. I just updated based on board's feedback for last dissection. And I do want to bring one thing to board's attention or the staff attention, is I put the facility master plan for $100,000, and we have talked about this for quite a while. I get some information from Diwali. The Diwali, their facility master plan costs them $50,000, but their plans only cover 5 elementary school, 1 high school. So obviously, if we want to do the facility master plan, I do want to do the thorough. For example, is the demographic study, this part of facility master plan, and also possible state funding. And so I just estimate $100,000. I just want to give the board some idea. The facility master plan normally is very expensive.
That's fine. Obviously, that's just an estimate. This will go out to bid. How long do you estimate, or when are we planning to put this out to bid, and what is the estimated start time?
So my plan is, I already sent out the published certain RFP, so it will come back this month. Once we finish the publishing 39 RFP, we have a consultant and study help us because we are short staffed and we have a expert in-house. So once this keep going there, I plan the beginning of next school year. We send, or if board want, I can send the RFP sooner.
Can you send us a copy? Can you send the board members a copy of what you're putting in for what we're going to be engaging for, what the scope of work is?
Sure.
Then if, once the board is okay with what the scope of work is, we need to take action, either to vote to approve the RFP to go out, or table it, or do whatever. But before we do that, we need to see what the scope of work is, get our input, and then next board meeting, let's move on one way or the other.
Okay, I will do that.
All right, are there any other questions on our deferred maintenance overall spreadsheet that we got before we move on to item number 2?
Can I ask if
Please.
is this a budget being prepared for next fiscal year? Is that what this is?
No. This is the similar as your spreadsheet. Your spreadsheet focuses on the entire athletic program need. This spreadsheet focuses on district-wide facility need based on priority, and this is the to-do list. But you know that the district kind of budget will never cover all the need. So this is a similar function, similar as yours.
Thank you.
Brian,
Yes.
I'd like to have Mr. Bill articulate this. This is my first time seeing this. I don't want to assume anything he's saying here.
No, you're good. That's the next item. I just want to make sure we're done with one.
Which
before
item
we
is
go
that?
to 2.
Number 2, funds swept during the budget?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, all right. So if we're good with this, we'll move on to. I'm just going to incorporate MHS Stadium and Athletics into this giant spreadsheet that we just. I'm sorry.
I do have one question on
Please.
this. Is this supposed to be deferred maintenance that's gonna be paid out of deferred maintenance? Or is it all maintenance? I mean, what is this list? Because it still has annual maintenance, including brushing and grooming of the football stadium. That's annual.
That
That's
just
an
be taken
every year
out.
cost. So But is that the only one that's an annual maintenance, or are several of these like recurring costs?
So this spreadsheet is actually including all the urgent need and future, near future need. But for funding wise, we do have a different part of money for the deferred maintenance, for the facility and other funding. So deferred maintenance actually it's very interesting things right now. The state changes funding and there's no longer separate deferred maintenance to the district. So however, we still keep that funding, but in order to answer the question, in the general fund, we budget ongoing maintenance. And then we also have a deferred maintenance part, and we also have a facility part. So all these three parts of money will cover the need we have district-wide facility need.
That's why I asked if this is deferred maintenance.
Part
There
of
are
it.
3 pots, but you're gonna tell me we're gonna take part of this out of each of different pots.
That's right.
We need to redefine this.
Yeah.
Can we clearly define this, and let's
Yeah.
agree upon what the structure is gonna be so we can move forward cleanly? What I'd like to see is this main sheet as, how much money do I need today to fix and bring up what is deferred up to where it needs to be? That's point 1. Then the point 2 is, what is the ongoing cost to maintain whatever we're looking at? And then the third part is the set aside for future replacement, which is typically what people refer to as deferred maintenance funds. Unless other people have different definitions of how they want to do this.
Where does the rental separate pot for run clear in the rental? Where do you envision?
Well,
that
that's where
scenario?
I see is our offset, which is the next part, well, a part of a conversation at a future point in time, which is our revenue sources. So let's just deal with our expenses, identifying our expenses at this point in time, and how we're going to classify them. And then in a future meeting, we're going to talk about our revenue sources and how to match them.
Yep.
Does that work?
Okay,
Is there-
Brian, through that form, you mentioned field, benches, football, $8,000. Brand new benches we just received.
Not just with the future needs. Which page do you look at?
I'm looking at your pink urgent needs.
Okay.
And we just got new benches. I'm just concerned about, we need new field benches, $8,000.
Oh, that's the estimate. So if we need to repair or replace the football stadium branches, bleachers, cost of
Bleachers or
$8,000.
benches?
Oh, I'm
Bench.
sorry, branches.
Those are urgent?
So,
The ones we have are falling
Branches.
apart.
yeah.
Which benches?
The green, the
Sideline
15-foot green sideline benches.
Oh, you mean those.
They're about,
Powder coated.
Powder coated.
Yeah.
Okay, the portable ones,
Yes.
the ones that are on the sidewalk.
yeah, powder coated.
Okay, that's fine.
They're before delivery, they're $1,800
Got it, thank you.
$1,800.
a piece.
And how many are we looking at?
287.
Okay. All right,
Ryan, could I ask,
please.
with Randy's new information, that we go through this document and make sure that it corresponds to this? Because if you look at the softball field renovation, Randy has infield laser level, which is 5,000. We have softball field renovation for 20,000. And I don't know if it needs
Yeah,
field work too, but let's
What I
make
think
sure
we'll
that-
do is,
Let's merge it,
let's,
you know?
yeah, I think this will end up being a subcategory, much like we have, all of these other things like swimming pool, water polo, and so
So
forth.
we have 25,000 over here on this document.
Yeah, we'll clean these up. This one, remember, this original one were estimates that we had done, 6 years ago, or whatever that time frame was, 4 years
But
ago.
let's make sure that our scope of work is in
We-
alignment
Right.
with what
Yeah,
they
so-
need and.
Right,
you know.
so what we'll do is, my thinking is, we're gonna take all of these and make this a subcategory into our major plan in some manner. But let's make sure that we're good with what we just talked about as far as how those categories will be broken down. Are we good with the whole emergency needs or needs now, then we'll classify those into the has to happen because it's a safety issue, it's a want list. We have funding for it. Then we have the maintenance of all of these particular items and or other items. And I don't know that I need to see what the maintenance cost is on this. I mean, that should be your ongoing budget. Each site's ongoing budget should be there. We need to see it, but I don't want it on this sheet. This is capital cost. And then we do need to see what our cost for replacements are going to be, estimates are, so we can plan those accordingly as well. And we could probably put that on the same sheet as the annual maintenance, because it should be a sinking fund every year, quarter, whatever we're going to be doing, setting aside those funds, or need to know how much funds we should be setting aside, but we won't have enough.
Yeah, Brian, I just want to revisit the AV needs, the sanitary cafeteria, forgive me.
Okay?
I see the difference. I was pointing out the auditorium AV system at 30K versus the cafeteria, and I clearly see the difference, forgive me.
No problem.
And I put the auditorium needs to be refined. That's not necessarily, it may just need to be repaired for $100 instead of a replacement for $10,000.
Well, I agree. I think we would all say that when we're talking about the safety needs, we're still in the process of trying to prioritize. I mean, let's not lose track of the purpose of all of these meetings, which is to identify, then prioritize what we need to do and when we need to get it done. So some things we know what the costs are because we're in the process, and some things we have old estimates for. But first we need to get a complete list. I need everybody to give the thumbs up that we've covered everything on their particular site in their particular purview. Then once we have all of the information, we can put together an active plan as to move forward and prioritize. So let's make sure we're on the same page, we're good with the same structure, and then we can knock these things down site by site. Yes?
Yeah, is the board interesting for me, just like we have one spreadsheet for the facilities, okay? The other spreadsheet that regular maintenance. So the what board interested for two separate Excel sheets?
They are separate.
Okay.
And on the maintenance spreadsheet, you could put replacement costs as well, and what the effective life is, and what we should be setting aside to.
That's what the facility master plan is. You can't just come up with that.
That's fine. I'm just saying we need to. I want to keep those off of this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So we're good with the game plan and how we're going to get this structured, what we're going to use it for moving forward. We know that this is going to change on a regular basis. As we move forward on things, we're going to get better estimates, we're going to start figuring things out. We'll get this defined.
Randy, do you have anything that you have to have before the end of the year?
The only thing that comes to mind is the phase 2 of the baseball infield placement, but that's a sort of, yes, that needs to be done. Our baseball coach hopes before mid-June.
But after the season, right? You can't.
It's after the season.
Is there anything that needs to be done for football, for spring football? I mean, on the safety side, that we have to address right this second? Pressing?
No.
You guys are comfortable with that field?
Well, the field, baseball,
Football. Just to follow Rob's comments, because I know he's going, you guys are comfortable with the field, the way it looks now?
I'm not so much worried about looks, I'm concerned about safety.
Well, that too, right. I agree with you, Rob.
I don't think we're in a compromised safety situation with the football field. I think it is being overused right now, and that's accelerating the wear and tear. But I think Connie and MOT are committed to getting back on schedule with the ongoing field maintenance.
When's
Because
our
it
next-
hasn't happened as consistently as.
When is our next scheduled field maintenance?
End of May.
In our last meeting, did we not talk about that for whatever reasons, the football field had not had the scheduled maintenance, cleaning, infill, grooming, and everything else to a point that we need to bring that up to par before we can continuously maintain it. And that this initial cost to bring it back to snuff was going to be more than our normal annual maintenance. Did I hear that correctly last time around?
You did.
That's what I
Okay,
That's what I heard too.
All right, so let me clarify,
This
since
is
you're
not
the
a meeting
person.
I was at, right?
No.
No.
You don't remember it, right?
Yeah. I don't remember.
So again, I mean, this
Running
is,
in your proxy.
and this is a great example of why we need you here and each site here, so they can clarify what is real and what isn't real. So let me ask you the question. The football field as it stands today, we have been told, has not been maintained on the same schedule that the manufacturer has recommended to have it cleaned, infilled, and groomed. And that to have that done is going to be will cost more than a normal annual upkeep, assuming that we have that contracted out. And we had a discussion about how it was going to be maintained as well. And I think that's a discussion that you can take care of with Connie as far as whether you're going to train somebody and have that person on staff who's certified to do the job, or whether
It's not a coach's responsibility.
that is not a coach's responsibility, or whether we're going to contract that out and what that cost is going to be. That to me is in that second bucket of ongoing maintenance. But to get the field to the spot it should be at, much like the baseball field, work needs to be put into it. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes.
Okay, so our question is, Rob's question is, how much work needs to go in to get things to the starting point so we can maintain things properly?
I don't know if that's a question that we can answer. I mean, I don't know fields well enough to know how they're to be
that's fine.
conditioned,
That
right?
answer is fine. So we don't know what that expense is going to be, but we know people that we can call to get that number.
Correct.
Is that
Field
fair?
trip will come out, they'll measure the infill, they will tell us what we need to get up to snuff, they will schedule it. Football has their dead period in June. I do not imagine it would take them more than 2, 3, 4 days, if that.
all right? So
Will you
you got a job?
do that? Because my concern is that we'll get into the heavy use again and will not be able to. What we found out at a meeting that you were not at is that we have not maintained that according to the manufacturer's instructions for a very long time.
And we're not
Time
throwing
out.
away-
Not picking on
we're not
anybody,
throwing
it
away.
just needs to get done.
Is that their responsibility or is that MOT?
No, that's what we're saying. We're not throwing
away
Rob
making
just
players.
asked,
And to
Rob
answer
just
that
asked-
question, I would
Randy to
say,
do that.
I don't have any problem calling field turf myself, but I would confess to some level of discomfort doing that, because I don't know what our warranty
you know what?
says, I don't know what.
Nelson has
Determine
contacted-
how
Nelson
it's
has
done.
Nelson has contacted him and should be able to give. us-
Whoever's in charge of doing that, somebody do it.
Nelson has done that, has contacted him, has walked it, has scheduled the May, maintenance, but the additional information you're requesting is what we'll need to get,
Perfect.
okay?
Could I ask Randy to clarify one thing? You said that you believe the field is being overused. Can you just quantify that for us?
Well, our teams use it. Football is back in business as of this week. We rent it out 3 days a week to FC Golden State Soccer Club, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. they are in a little bit of a jam for fields. They came to us at the end of March and asked if they could rent 3 hours a night on Tuesday and Thursday. I declined the approval, and I talked to Connie about it, but it was approved above my head somewhere. I don't know. I know that they use that field. They got a lot of kids on it. I don't know if a synthetic field really needs the rest that a grass field needs.
But it definitely needs
But you would not win an argument saying that wear and tear is not being accelerated
by outside
by
entities.
further use.
By outside entities. That's what
By
I'm
the
trying
people
to
that are
understand.
renting the field.
Right.
Hence the rent.
It's the rent.
But this is part of another discussion we're gonna have,
Yeah, are we
which will
charging
come with
enough
the,
rent to make
which
it
will
worth
come
our
with
while?
our revenue conversation of, not only how are we gonna pay for all of this, but are the fees that we are charging appropriate
Commensurate with the usage.
to the usage, and what is our actual game plan and how and why we're doing things. I will tell you that our original game plan from the time that we put this in was, in my mind, renting out that field, assuming we properly maintained everything, was a positive. And the reason being that fields, field turf especially, is much like computers. Every year or 2 years, the technology gets bigger and better and cheaper. And the idea is if you had a way to pay for the actual usage of the cost, the only result would be is we're going to be replacing the turf faster, but we're going to have a pot of money that is going to be subsidizing it, so our cost to the school really isn't going to change from year to year.
With the assumption that it's in the sync fund specifically for the capital improvement.
Which we talked about, which we supposedly have, but that's a revenue question. We'll get to it at another point in time.
Okay, so what I want to know is when can I get an answer to when we will have somebody look at that field to tell us that answer when? That's what I want to know.
It sounds like
By
you
Friday.
already have.
Friday?
Right. The cost amount.
Hey, before we get to the cost, I'd like to revisit that. You said no and you overruled. How did
Well-
that happen? So we can crush that now.
Facility requests for use of our athletic facilities, anything that's going to affect our gyms or our fields, or those come past my eyes because I need to check and see what our practice schedules are, or what if we have events scheduled, talk to our coaches and coordinate. So most of the time, sometimes I have to say a flat no because our kids are using it and they're first priority. But sometimes we work it out. But on this one, from my chair, I said no. And I know it came back to the district, and Connie I had a good conversation with Connie about why I thought it was too much. But the district has the right to override the site athletic director. And I get it, and I don't have an argument against the extra revenue that's being produced. But, yeah.
Again, we'll cover usage, amount of usage, and revenue at another time to make sure we're doing things appropriately, as long as, and as well as scheduling and how to streamline this process so we don't have so many delays in getting responses and everybody knows what's going on and why. So we will get that portion done in a future meeting. Perfect. Alrighty, so with that noted, so now you understand the question that Rob was really asking, which is, what do you need to have done in order to get things back to square one, to a baseline, in which once we start performing the appropriate maintenance as required, we're in good shape. So, for example, the football field, we know it's still usable. It's not necessarily a safety hazard as it stands today, but we do need to invest funds to get it to the appropriate level that it should be, so we don't start killing the actual economic life of it, right? So are there any other items, and it doesn't have to be just sports fields, Kurt, Phil, that you're saying we need to invest funds to get things to where they should be? Is that
That's close enough. I mean, obviously the first issue here is student safety. So they're on that thing playing around, and we're supposed to have little pellets all over the place at so many centimeters each, and we should have those little pellets at so many centimeters each. And I'm not sure that we have them. And I'm just using that as an example.
It needs maintenance, because too many of the pellets are on top, but that's fixable.
So we're gonna get an answer on that on Friday.
Okay.
Black Friday.
And there's another something like that that you don't know right now, but you leave, go home tonight and go, wish I would have brought that up. Let's know that too, so that we can address that.
So you notice that we have on here field already, the baseball field, and we have pool issues for the filtrations.
Yeah.
So are there any other items?
Well, with football coming up, I'm concerned about the reconditioning costs for helmets and shoulder pads. And although that isn't a cost that we need to incur before the end of the year, it's coming quickly.
Well,
So are we itemizing now?
no,
No.
well, I didn't mention that because that's on here.
Yeah.
I feel like you're asking me for anything that's not on
You know
here.
what? Perfect. Let's go to this, because this is the first time that I'm seeing
That
this.
makes a lot of sense.
So if we can kind of cruise
Okay,
down
on
this.
the facility side, are we good?
Yeah,
Okay. Perfect. We're good, then segue to this one.
perfect. All right.
Okay.
All right, Randy, if you don't mind, let's start. Let's go down the first year, and then we're just going to kind of wing it and see where it takes us, since we haven't eyeballed it yet. If that's okay.
Randy, the red is the have to have right now, right?
Yeah, I will. This has been enhanced a little bit from what I made. That first column on to the right of the names of the sports, with the first year totals, has been added, which is useful. There are a couple mistakes on it.
That's right.
Under football, the fourth item down is.
Let's start with baseball first, if we can, really
Okay.
quick. All right. So the first thing that jumps out is we've got $500 to recondition and recertify equipment, and that's going to be an ongoing cost. Is that correct?
Actually, it's not the first thing that jumps out. Forgive me, guys. If we don't itemize and articulate what he's trying to articulate to us, I can't receive it. And starting from the top, as you just acknowledged, it starts at $4,000 uniform. I have a question about that.
Okay.
So does that mean yearly uniforms, $4,000 for the baseball team?
I talked to Coach about this. He spends about $4,000 a year on replacement uniforms. Baseball goes through uniforms faster than any other sport because of the surface they play on, and the fact that they wear white and gray. And he's outfitting 3 different teams.
All right, thank you, man. Forgive me, Brian. I
No,
was
that's,
confused on
that's a
that.
good question, and maybe that's something where we can jump in.
You will notice, yeah, it's different for different sports. Cross country, every 4 or 5 years, maybe.
So the baseball uniforms are a yearly expense of about $4K.
Yep.
Okay.
And in the past, most of that's been done by fundraising, or has most of that been paid out of ASB funds?
The only uniforms at Monrovia High School that have been purchased by anyone other than our teams are the ones that were purchased for football this year, due to that debt that was incurred. And every other sport raises funds and buys their uniform.
Okay, so in baseball, and I'm gonna exclude, fixing the infield, because that's gonna hopefully be a one-time, or at least, once every number of years as needed, right? But all these other ones are in annual cost. Is that a fair assumption?
No, windscreen is not.
Okay. So taking out the windscreen, it's about $9,000.
Yep.
Okay, and that $9,000, let's start with this one really quickly. So for all of your sports combined, the amount of funds that you receive from the district is?
I have 3 accounts. I have a supplies account, which is
Okay.
when I buy balls and once in a while a larger ticket item when I save money up by the end of it. That's north of $10,000.
Okay.
That's
It might be closer to 11,000.
That's per year.
Per year.
Okay.
I have first aid supplies account to buy athletic tape, pre-wrap, medical supplies. It's $2,000 a year.
Okay.
And my third account is for reconditioning and repairs, which goes 100% to reconditioning and recertification of football helmets, and that's $5,500 a year. And that's gobbled up completely by that one.
So the
cost.
55 that you get does football, and then everything else gets a 0.
No, the 55 that I get does football helmets.
Right, it takes care of football.
And it's exhausted. There's no money there for reconditioning and cleaning of shoulder pads. That cost has been sustained by the football program since I've been in AD. That costs another $4,000. That's why my budget says $10,000 for reconditioning for both.
Okay, well, I see you've got that in the football section. All right, so I just want to have everybody start with a frame of mind of what you're receiving. So in general, you're receiving about
$17,500.
18,000, whatever, $17,000 to $18,000.
And that's what it's been for 17 years.
So you have a $17,000 solution for a $75,000 problem.
In your ongoing budget, I see a total at the very bottom of the first column is $197,000. Is that for all 10 years?
That's the first year.
First year.
And that total is actually incorrect, as there are a couple of mistakes in that column.
Okay.
So the total is actually 185, 125. Those mistakes are in the fourth item in football. It should be 2,500, not 25,000. And the third item in swimming.
Mine is corrected. Mine does say 2,500.
Not in the left column. To
The far left column.
right here. It says 25,000 here, but 2,500 in red.
First page.
First page.
Oh, first page. I'm sorry.
First page, first column, first second column.
I see what you're saying.
And then the third item in swimming should be $10,000, not $10. I wish it was 10. That'd be nice.
I'll pay for that one now.
So that changes the totals at the bottom. Top total is 185, 125. The total equipment is 106, 325. And the total facilities is 78, 800.
Okay. Well, clearly, these numbers, no matter how you dice it, is more than your 17,000. So the gap comes from where?
Oh, yeah.
Additional sources of income include, in addition to the fundraising that was mentioned, ticket sales, gate and snack
Bar.
shack,
ASB.
Parking.
ASB.
And ASB is actually part of the fundraising, so we get a little from ASB.
What does that mean?
Well, you're talking about
Football
some
is the
sports,
most profitable sports
ASB
we
pays
have.
for everything, for athletics, transportation, officials, awards.
Which isn't included in any of this.
Yeah, no, ASB doesn't buy tennis balls. But they take care of all that other stuff. You don't see buses or officials budgeted here. But, you know, other than that, our sports are raising money for what they need. As best
What
they
is the revenue side of this equation?
Well, and that's really the tricky part of this whole process. For the longest time, all sports were balanced on parent contributions, fees, spirit pack purchases where the program would turn a profit. Kids would buy a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and a mouthpiece for $50 when they only cost the program $15. And that piece would go back into the program and that would help fundraise. Well, AB 575 changed all of that. Now we can no longer have fees go to parents. And with that, lost a large revenue stream. Because of that, coaches retired and resigned across the valley, across California. They just didn't want to have that fight. They saw the writing on the wall that they would have to now become fundraisers. That would be their number one job if they were going to maintain their program. Because the input from the districts were fairly low compared to the needs of the programs.
I think we all knew that there was a huge imbalance. To this point in time, I never knew that it was this large. Honestly,
Imbalance for band and.
I understand. I understand.
Number
But
of
we,
programs, but this is just
Okay.
one of those that have that.
we've got Randy in front of us, so he gets to do this.
And Randy, Phil, and Kurt, now, from my experience, football warrants the most revenue generated. So why is it so conservative with ASB supporting or subsidize the uniforms and stuff like that?
Well, I didn't understand your question. Why doesn't football get more money from ASB?
Right, because football carries the load for our resources in athletics.
Well,
Am I wrong?
Athletics eats 70 to 75% of ASB outlays annually.
Football and athletics?
No, total. The
All
athletic
of them.
programs.
Okay, I'll go back to my point. If football is generating the majority of the revenue, then why are they getting less of the revenue from ASB? Of resources. If football is bringing in the majority of the revenue and not
Correct.
athletics efforts, why is it that football resources are subsidized lesser with a focus on football from ASB?
Well, just like any other sports entity, whether it's college or high school, football is the main ticket item, and it pays for all of the other programs. Football and boys basketball, men's basketball, pay for everything. So girls water polo just doesn't bring in the type of money that football does. So what would end up happening is you'd be cutting those other programs, which is why Title IX was invented in the first place.
Because you don't charge tickets for baseball,
Correct.
softball.
The other thing that comes
Correct.
to mind, Terrence, is ASB supports all of the sports in the same way.
Yeah, I get
Buses,
that. I
officials,
really get that,
awards.
guys.
If you now, because football, you pad this account so much more than other sports, we're going to contribute this amount to your program. Now you're crossing a line into ASB supporting one of our sports in a different way
Where would,
than the other.
Well, if that sport is justifying the majority of the resources,
Terrence, under your scenario, where would baseball or softball get the money to pay the officials?
no,
Or
but
buy
that's
the trophy?
not.
No, the question is, where would they get the money to pay the officials if
From-
they didn't get it from ASB? They don't charge tickets.
Does the ASB officials warrant majority, the official revenue resource majority, warrants the majority of ASB resources? Is that what you're telling me, Ed?
I'm saying there would be no money, no pot of money to pay officials for softball and baseball.
I disagree with
Because-
that. I disagree with that. I
Let's
disagree
just
with
look at
that.
the first
Where would-
box.
where's
We
the
talked
income?
about baseball.
If I can explain myself, I'll explain why I disagree with it. I've been involved with football for the last 15 years. I know factually that football warrants the majority of the revenue and resources. So it would behoove me to think that ASB cannot subsidize what some of these coaches have been doing. And I'm trying to change the point. I get Ed's point. I'm not trying to take away from that small resource to pay the officials because I know what they make because I'm sitting there for 12 years. But football is the majority of our resource tool. So why can't it be subsidized more from ASB versus having coaches to go out of their pockets and doing stuff like that that you said that this new provision doesn't warrant us to do anymore? I'm sorry, guys, that's not rocket science to me.
Well, there's just not a pot large enough at ASB to subsidize that sport.
Does ASB have a revenue over? I've only had 3 hours sleep. Does ASB have a balance in their budget right now that you can articulate what it is to us? What is that
I don't
balance?
know if ASB is in the black at this point. in the year.
Somebody knows at this table.
Yeah, from Kansas State, ASB, their money comes from fundraising the different sports. Their revenue is from the ticket sale for different fundraising.
I'm familiar with that.
So,
Does ASB have a balance? What is it?
yes, they have balance.
What is the balance?
I will show you detail because it depends on different group, they have balance.
Okay, because you're not talking to Willie Fufu here. I know all about the sports.
Yeah.
And I like to know what balance ASB have to warrant Ed's position of what can we pay the officials. If we don't know what they have in their kitty, we can't even go move forward to saying what we need from them.
And just as a reminder, ASB is charged with supporting all of the activities and events on a campus.
I know that too.
They have lots of clubs within it, and if we'd like to take a look at the entire budget of ASB and identify the income sources, we could absolutely do an audit of ASB in all of last year.
Isn't that
Because
why
that
we're
would help identify.
That's why we're
what's
here,
going.
right? That's why
So
we're
we
here.
can do that. We don't
Yeah.
have that with us today.
Yeah,
but we
no, I
can
get
do
that.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, guys. Let's stop condescending here. I know what the heck SB is, okay? My point is still, what is the balance? And from my history in this district, nobody has ever known that in this capacity. What does ASB have
Kathy
in their
Morrow
budget?
sends monthly reports to the district office.
I'd like to see that report.
We will,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's a bigger picture here, guys. I don't mean to behoove this, Brian, but I mean, it's just a bigger picture here when we say hands off ASB when football is bringing in the majority of the resources. I know what ASB does with others. And that's because of the football revenue, they are allowed to do such. But I'm still going back to my point. We've got an issue here with football being our biggest scholars and champion motto, but yet there's no resources to support it. And I'll let you move forward on that point.
Well, let me just clarify what your question is. Are you asking that we set the priority for ASB funds?
No, I'm asking what funds are available at ASB so I can understand how to dissect this, how it's happening there, because there's no excuse for coaches to go out like they did this year. If there's a balance in ASB fund, they could have subsidized that. And it is not trying to take away from the officials. That's not what I'm saying. It's not saying that ASB doesn't warrant resources from everybody else and support everybody else. I know that, and so does the board. But I don't think any board member here knows exactly what balance is in ASB.
Does ASB have a carryover?
That's a better word.
They do. What the team from MHS team said that within the SB, within the Boost Club, the football club make a lot of money because some other sports club they did not. So the money generated by football club support the other sports program at the high school campus. That was the team mentioned. So I have a balance as of the April 2017 ASB. I will print out and it will be on my this Friday update to all the board.
But ASB has a carryover every year.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
May I make a suggestion also that when we provide that information to the board, that we provide also the requirements for spending ASB funds, because there are some specific guidelines that prohibit us from just taking that money and reimbursing coaches, or for I can't go out and use ASB funds just to buy something that I want for my school. There are processes, and I think
Yes.
that might be helpful for the
Randy,
board to
could you clarify something you had said earlier? And that was that there were a number of items that are not on here, such as transportation, officials' fees, coaches' stipends, and so forth. And that ASB paid for those as a whole.
Except for the coaches' stipends.
Correct.
Except for the
They don't pay
exception-
for coaches'
With the
stipends.
exception of coaches' stipends, ASB pays all of those set fees for each sport in their entirety, regardless as to what the amounts are,
That's correct.
right? So for
Well,
football,
no, it's finite for awards.
I'm sorry?
It's finite for awards.
For
ASB
awards.
pays $60 per level. So baseball has 3 levels of sport, so ASB would pay a total of $180 for awards for baseball.
Okay. But the rules are the same for each sport regardless of the sport.
Correct.
And regardless of need,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So for a football team, which obviously has more players than, say, our track
Or
not
cross-country.
tracks, yeah,
Basketball.
or basketball team, for example, that's probably the smallest, right? We pay for that regardless. We economize whenever possible. We have multiple teams travel on the same bus,
Correct.
as long as schedules are relatively close, right? So outside of those general costs, in which they're shared equally based on what the requirements are, does ASB pay for any additional sports-related items? So for example, if one particular sport needed something in addition, can ASB make that decision to say, we're going to pay this extra funds to this particular sport?
I don't know. I don't know if that's within the
Okay,
scope
let
of
me
what-
rephrase it. Has our ASB picked out singular items to subsidize or pay for whatever reason?
Let's just say they had 20,000 left over in the bank. Could they do the conditioning on the field, the baseball field?
I don't think
I
that's
do
part of
not
the
think they would
guidelines.
be inclined to spend it on
Now, not that they're inclined, but is it legal for them to
that. I don't know.
I don't think it's.
Have we done anything like this in the past in which ASB has paid for a particular item?
For a
that-
necessity, other than the ones that we've
Okay.
covered?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Terrence, let me try something here. I think I got this. I think what Terrence is saying, since football brings the majority of the money to the program, to the pot, if there's money left over, can that money be used to benefit football? Specifically, could it pay for conditioning of pads? Could it be paid for conditioning of pawns?
Under 2 conditions. 1, ASB as a group agrees to that.
Who's ASB?
The students that are
Student
members of it.
leadership.
Okay.
And 2, that within the confines of what they're allowed to do, that they're allowed to do it.
Which is why I was suggesting that we bring to each of you the summary of the guidelines, because at the core of it, the mantra that we use is if it's going to benefit all of our students on our campus, and that's something that ASB can support.
Was that your question?
Yeah, and thank you for all the clarification. But guys, this is an old stick to me. And frankly, it just behooves me that we don't know this.
Does your experience lend any insight to the question?
We
Could ASB do something like that?
I think it goes back to echo what Kirk just said. If it is benefiting all students, then the ASB leadership team, which are students, have to take a vote to allocate an
Well,
expenditure.
if the athletic director can be overridden,
But I think that goes back to what Kirk said. They're
I mean, you might as well find out it's a cruel world right now instead
It's
of waiting until you're his age.
They have gone to ASB trainings and conferences, and there's a guideline, even when the auditor comes in.
There is an audit to
There is an
ASB.
audit to
Pretty
ASB.
much every year.
It's like, don't do anything.
We fix. Let's correct that.
Let's not do
Let's
something
correct
that we
that.
can't do. But if it can be done, because I guess if the litmus test is it has to be beneficial, then I would say that the thing that brings the most to the bottom line is beneficial.
which is football.
That's how I would argue, but I don't want to get off into the weeds,
It's not
but
rocket
I just
science.
want to make sure that, I mean, I'm very clear on what Terrence's question is, and of course, we want to stay within the guidelines of the rules and laws, because we don't want to run afoul of that, but and I'll be looking forward to seeing what that thing looks like. I have no idea what ASB is.
No, and that's where, again, we want to get everybody on the same page. I want to make sure that everybody has the same understanding as to what we have, how we've done it in the past, why we've done it in the past, and can we make changes, let alone should we make changes, right? So if we can get everybody have the same answers, then I think we can have a better conversation as to the best way to proceed. And if we can also attach some dollar amounts to what this is, so we can see if it's even relevant. I think we have an assumption that football is bringing in 20 times what everything else is. That may or may not be true. I have no idea. But when we get right down to it, and it turns out football is bringing in $5,000 a year more, nothing's going to change because it's not worth the hassle. So, you know, things need to have relevance as well. So if we can have this conversation and then we can figure out the best way to go forward, that might be good.
Just a gated football on Friday night can bring in over 10 grand.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
I mean, everybody in this room knows that football has the opportunity, because of the way high school athletics in America is built. Football has the opportunity to bring money in. Water polo does not.
Right.
And as respectfully as possible, to Mr. Williams' concern, I would say I would lobby hard for gate receipts for football to benefit all of our sports.
Well,
all of them.
I'm still in that line too.
I don't disagree with you at all. But before we have the discussion, I want to make sure that everybody has the same facts, so we can have the same discussions. And at this point in time, I think it's
Snack
just
bar goes to ASB as well?
Small portion.
Okay.
Snack bar is 40%.
I guess I need to know how the revenue stream works.
Okay, he was on it. Second board is 40.
40% to football, 40% to band, 20% to ASB.
Does any portion of the gate go to band? Or is it all
No.
go to ASB?
Gate is
putting
all-
your items together. If you can itemize our source of funds and expenditures in general, and as last year's year-end budget, so we can put things in a framework, that would probably be helpful. In the same discussion, if you can also put down, Kurt, in your rules of what we can and cannot do, and that is individual teams fundraising for their individual sports, and what those guidelines are, to make sure we don't run afoul of those issues, and that we're very clear in what's going on and how it goes on.
But, like Phil said, and Randy just said too, you know, football generates the most revenue, and in college football it's the same way. And the University of Alabama might have a TV contract, just a TV contract of $120 million last year. That $120 million didn't all go to football.
No.
It helps
No,
subsidize.
It has to go to
Yeah,
somebody else.
totally agree.
I got a question though. Go back to this immediate part. There's an $18,000 in red letters there for football, which is the one that's coming up, the students. How long does it take to get these things done and for the kids to be ready to use them? Is that right? I got 10.
Reconditioning.
That's right.
Yeah. It's like 18,000.
Yep.
How long does that take to do? And is there any money to do that? And
Well, I will tell you, it's my belief that all $18,000 of that should be covered by the district.
well, that's okay. What I'm
Because
asking
they
you
are
is
utterly
how long does it
necessary.
take and when does it need to be done? That's what I'm asking.
Reconditioning bill is, reconditioning's done in the late winter, early spring. Our stuff is with the reconditioners now.
Okay.
They invoice us. It's a new fiscal year invoice, so I'm not gonna pay that invoice until after July 1st, and they know that. This happens every year. So that one's gonna get paid pretty shortly after I get my new accounts in July.
Okay.
The other ones,
We have, I see reconditioning in parentheses, that's shoulder pads and helmets?
that's shoulder pads and helmets.
Okay.
If I get that much money,
Because
we're
I
gonna-
see, then I see 2 pads and helmets, that's 15,500. I see a 10 and a 55.
That's a replacement. 55 is a replacement. When you send gear out to be reconditioned, it doesn't always pass reconditioning.
Okay.
They'll say, this helmet has to be replaced. So those are two different fees.
anywhere from 10 to 15 helmets every year do not pass certification and have to be replaced.
And the reconditioner recertifies them as well, or is that something we do in-house?
No, they
No.
certify them, they
Just
test
wanna-
them,
just wanna
certify
make sure.
them, put a
So-
new sticker on the inside.
Okay.
We collectively, the 5 of us, we need to get you $18,000. When does that have to be done? Because when are the kids going to be needing this thing? That's what I want.
July 1st is when the invoice comes.
If I have that money in the new fiscal year, I'm good. Because I'm not gonna know until the beginning of June how many helmets got, did pass.
That $5,500 figure could be more or less.
I can order those in early July and have them plenty of time.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's what I want to know. It's how fast, because that's the next one coming up is football.
Yeah.
And so they use them in the summertime for practice, I'm assuming?
Not until first week of August.
Okay.
All right, so you have a budget of $5,500 for $18,000 of fixes, give or take. What happens?
For one sport.
How are you getting it done now? That's the question.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
Who's
yeah.
paying for it? I mean,
Who's paying for it?
We're
Where's it coming
obviously
from?
not putting the kids out there with uncertified helmets
No.
and pads.
Well,
I want to make sure we're clear on that, right? We've never put our kids in harm's way with putting them in
No,
there.
that's
Right, okay.
I
That's
get,
correct.
as
Statement
mentioned
of-
before, I get enough money to recertify the helmets. Pretty soon, it's not gonna be enough money, but for the last several years, like this last one, I think the reconditioning bill was $5,400, so it was right under that 55, so it covered it. They always get recertified, don't worry about that, but until this past year, football program has always raised the funds to buy new football helmets, new shoulder pads, new protective equipment. It has never come from the district.
Share with them what that looks like. When the football program, what does it look like for the football program to raise that money? What are some examples?
The football boosters make about $5,000 on the discount card sales. So that's a major fundraiser for them.
Oh, what?
That usually gets filtered through Big M boosters. So Big M has an account, football puts their receipts in, and then receives a check from them.
They have any number of.
And we oversee Big M boosters. We do not.
We do not.
There's no oversight.
Outside entity.
It's a 501c3 and it's all
Correct. Yes.
So we have no say, correct? I just want to make sure we're, again, on the same page, right? So they can fundraise for any particular group that they wish, as long as they meet their charter rules, and disperse those funds in any way that they see fit. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And to be fair, follow up on what I said before, I will say that this past year, the district did purchase football helmets and shoulder pads. Yours truly and our head coach got ourselves in some trouble because over the summer, without any funding, we went into our own pockets and bought a bunch of helmets and a bunch of shoulder pads so we could field our teams and have the equipment. And the expectation was that as the season went on, the snack bar and fundraisers, football would pay us back.
Did it?
No.
The district.
Phil kind of took it and ran with it and said this shouldn't be happening this way in the first place. And the district compensated myself and 2 football coaches who spent $2,000, $3,000, $4,000.
I agree, and this is the problem, right? Because it's worked till it didn't work. But if it didn't work once, there's a probability that it's not going to work again, especially as enrollment continues to decline. And if we hit a tough spot in which parents, community members can't contribute as much as they have had in the past, it's going to happen again. So, my concern is we need to fully fund all safety items. I mean, just
No
Should be
brainer.
part of the annual maintenance.
to me, this is a gimme. This needs to be part of whoever's ongoing budget for maintenance. And in my mind, we can adjust it accordingly, because some years you're gonna have less and some years you're gonna have more replacement needs. But until, this just has to happen. This just has to happen. So we need to be able to sweep that off to the side. So is it okay for the board to give direction to change budgeting procedures? Because it's not something that requires a board action.
No, it needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, like you said, this year is a higher year, which is a little over $25,000, and it just needs to be taken care of.
We need to get things to square one.
Does-
And we're just continuously fighting uphill, and it's gotta stop.
Does the budget that go to high school now include 17,000 for athletics, or does the budget go to the site and the site decide how much goes to athletics?
It goes directly to athletics.
Per
what Randy-
direction of the district.
What Randy identified is the 17.5 that he gets annually.
But the direction from the district is 17.5 of this is for athletics.
Correct.
Okay.
So
What the board, I think, just said, is we need to up that to an amount that covers safety
Every year.
here
So
every year.
before we get to the next box, let's just make sure we're clear. Your reconditioning budget of $5,500 is now going to be appropriate to recondition, buy new safety equipment as required, ongoing.
That includes baseball helmets.
Baseball
Everything.
helmets, football helmets.
Every
these are lump
sport,
sum.
every sport we offer, it has to happen.
So if the total budget for the reconditioning and recertification was 15,000, so we just said 18,000, 18,000, that should be his new budget going forward.
That's just for football.
That's-
No,
That
Doesn't include catcher's gear,
No, that's-
baseball.
no,
That's-
that's-
Well, but you could
football,
put,
Brian.
for
That's
softball,
yeah.
baseball, and football, those are the only three sports that require those
Certification.
recertifications and the reconditioning. So if those were all under one umbrella account for reconditioning,
Yes.
Can you get it done for 18? I guess that's the question, or is that a low ball?
What do you need?
what's included? What are you asking? Can I get
Here-
one?
Here's the deal,
Reconditioning certification.
Randy, sitting in front of you are the people with the purse. What do you need?
Reconditioning, and I put 10 here. If I was gonna put the other sports under that umbrella, I'd raise it to maybe 11 or 12 for reconditioning.
well, I think you've got
Okay,
it on
all right.
that sheet, it's just you gotta.
It's
sum
in
it.
different
You
places.
gotta-
Right,
you gotta
right.
add
So
them
you're
up.
saying
For
$12,000.
20 total.
For 11 or 12, reconditioning.
That doesn't include replacement.
Plus your
And-
tape and
No,
your replacement.
replacement cost of helmets and catcher's gear and stuff like that. is
Approximately how much are
different.
you guessing that would be?
I put 5,500 for football helmets, and you were very perceptive to say some years it could be 4,000, and some years it could be 7,000, depending on how many get rejected. But if football and baseball and softball, if that umbrella amount was about 7K, that would
But
be.
that includes your tape and all your other stuff you have to
No.
have. Yeah, what I wanna do is I wanna know what that number is. This is safety-related items.
Well,
What is that?
the
25,000?
2,000 a year that I get, there's three accounts, remember.
Right.
One is
It
supplies.
was 17,500.
The 2,000 I get for first aid, for tape, pre-wrap, medical supplies, for the most part, is sufficient.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
So
still
it's 18 plus 2 is 20. Go ahead.
And the other one is my supplies account, which is what I use to buy baseballs, softballs,
And-
basketballs,
And
footballs.
how much is that?
Nets, soccer nets.
That's 10.
10, so that's 30,000. All right.
Does the $10,000
But if that
for
one got bigger,
supplies,
that'd be great too.
does the 10,000, don't get greedy, remember,
I know.
pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered, so let's,
That's not safety equipment, so I don't have that argument for it.
But it is the equipment that's required in order for us to field teams.
Yes.
Which and that's the piece
Right.
that I don't want to gloss over.
If we had
We
if
still
we
have
had
to field
$30,000 and it was earmarked to going over to the high school, do you feel that you could field your teams with the safety equipment and the material needed in order to perform?
Yes.
With this criteria that we have
That
in
would
front of us?
that would take some pressure off of 3 sports for sure.
well, almost by definition, take pressure off of everything.
Yeah,
So,
because there'll still be a fundraising mechanism going on. These things are not going to fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
Just this will be taken care of, and then those things can take care of the things that they need to take care of. We take care of the things that we're supposed to take care of.
My point is, water polo is not going to feel it that much because water polo doesn't deal with recertification.
no, but that's fine, because if we're now paying for a lot of the expenses that went to football, that means that the Big M boosters and or ASB
They should have
no
big-
longer
they should
will
have
have
big
more
bank
funds
accounts
to
with
pay
other
for
money.
other
Yeah.
to pay for other things that are going to
Because
help
you're talking
the
about-
students involved.
You're at almost $30,000 when you're talking about certification, replacement of helmets, you're talking about baseballs, bats, footballs, basketballs, softballs.
Well,
That
let me
all
ask this
adds up
question
to
too.
almost 30 grand.
The way it is now,
It's just that.
they're in separate accounts that have very specific purposes. Are we talking about keeping it that way?
No,
Could
I
we-
mean,
before
honestly,
we
I
put
want
a
to make
number
sure.
on this, can we just get a summary of what this sheet says under each category? And then have your assessment. Is that necessary for annual budget to buy balls, equipment, green fees? Can't field the golf team if you don't pay the green fees. I mean, the necessary supplies, equipment to field a team, the necessary safety equipment, what's the total? I mean, we're asking you, can you do it for 30,000? Well, I would propose we give you time to take this sheet, add up the numbers, and then look at the total and say realistically, do we need to take money away from the classroom and put it into this fund? Because that's what we're talking about doing at the district level, giving it to the athletic department. Do you need that much money every year for supplies? How much? How much for safety equipment?
Just adding up balls, just balls that are listed on this sheet, it's 19,550, 950.
That doesn't include green fees.
15, and the greens fees.
Oh, wait.
I added the greens fees.
Okay.
So
You
we're
need to remember, keep everything in context here. What we're trying to do is create budgets going forward. We have a finite amount of money that's probably going to be less rather than more in the coming years.
Right.
So as much as every person at this table wants to fully fund every aspect to its absolute best level, that's not a reality. We absolutely need to make sure that safety is paramount. So clearly you've been given direction to make sure that safety issues are resolved. Some of the other issues, we are going to have to continue to depend on these other sources. There's just no way around it.
I'm going to argue the other side of that, Brian, for a second.
Sure.
We're required to provide what's necessary to perform. If that's a ball and a bat and a glove and all that kind of stuff for somebody to participate, we have to provide that. Am I right?
That's correct.
So it's as important as the safety element. So we need to know what that number is.
I agree, but even in our budget as a district, we include a certain amount that we're gonna get as income from donations. So when we consider that budget for the athletic department at the high school, I think we need to consider the whole revenue stream including donations, fundraisers, et cetera.
And I think this is all
So-
part of the items you're gonna get for us. I wanna make sure, because our time is running short for tonight, to make sure that we address the things that have to be addressed, which is the safety issues. We know you're coming back, though.
I want to ask one more question in regards to on the revenue side. I know that we have sources right now, but I want to know if we can change the way we define those sources. If it's a 40-40-20 split at the snack bar, and we're over here throwing in a ton of money on this thing, can we cut ourselves a piece of that pie out of that thing? And I mean on the district side. I mean, what we're talking about is we're going to use the people who owns this thing's money for them. Can we get some of their money back so we can continue to keep resupplying it? That's the issue. This isn't like the district's a different entity. This is just the big house that the people own. So if the stadium that the people own are fueling the football team and the uniforms that the people own, can we get some of that money back so that we can keep doing it over and over and over again?
I'll tell you, as a former Big M president 5 times, and the guy that ran the snack bar for 4 years, if you tell me you're taking 10% of my money, I'll say you run your own damn snack bar then.
Okay.
If I'm working for my kid's sport, and they get a significant piece of that money, I'll work my finger to the bone. But when you start taking it for the district, it's tough enough when it's on the site, but when you start saying, we're gonna take some of that money off site,
And I don't disagree with you, Ed. I don't disagree with you one iota. What we haven't done yet is we haven't walked out into the public with any of this stuff yet.
Right.
We have not done a sales job on this. We have not made people aware that there's an issue. And when you start telling people this is what the reality of this thing looks like, and if 10% were to go back for renewable, for coming right back at you, that's what I'm saying. The district's owned by the same people who own the football field. They're not two different entities. They're the same. So this is what we need to do. And I'm not even talking that I'm using the snack bar as an example. Maybe we need to get a cut off of that gate that comes through and says, because we need that money for renewable so we can come right back and keep doing this thing over and over and over and over.
But
we are the stewards of the people's money.
I don't disagree, Rob, but from the standpoint of right today, every dollar that's raised by those folks at the high school goes to program. It's money that we don't have to spend. So we're giving them.
Oh, no,
it's just not coming into our coffers to decide.
I don't want to not look at it because I'm afraid to have the conversation with people about how does their money work. You know, and it may not, I don't want to leave something and not talk about it on the table. I think that we need to fund all this stuff, and we need to do that. We should be out there talking about this right now. This is an item that should be out in the community should know exactly what we're faced with.
That's why I think we should have the line
if I could add to Rob's
for how
comment,
much of it's funded by fundraising.
And if I could add to Rob's comment, the community would be desperate to hear this.
Oh, I don't
Especially
disagree. As
people I
long as
talk to out there, they want to know that we're involved.
All right, guys,
So,
I'm sorry.
we got to go right now.
We've got one more item to take care of. So, again,
That one off so that we can.
the idea here is, I don't want to get stuck in the conversation today because we don't have all the information. I don't have what the sources of funds are, so I don't want to talk about the sources of funds. So, in an update, Kirk, you're going to provide somebody, I'm not sure who, you've got a laundry list of stuff to do. And as Rob just brought up, these are, in my mind, rules that we may or may not do. So you've all heard the conversation, so don't take that list as a absolute literal list. If there are other things that clearly fit on there that we should know before coming to conclusions, please include it. But before we end this portion, you need to know that your budget's going to change for the safety stuff. I don't want you guys to sweat that. I think we're all clear on that moving forward. You're good enough on the rest, at least until our next meeting, so we can figure out how to separate things a little bit better, right? We're going to get a better understanding of how ASB is going to work, how funds are working, the Big M booster possibilities, and any other outside revenue sources, what's going on. what the total cost breakdown is, not necessarily by sport, but by categories, so we can see what the actual costs are, and what the expenditures are, where the gaps are, so we can get a better comprehensive plan going forward. And is that about it? Is that
One clarification. Is that your feeling and the rest of the board feeling that we've given direction also to make sure the annual maintenance on that field is covered? That the money is in the budget to cover that annual maintenance, disinfection, the whole, whatever that annual. We recommended maintenance.
we have, and that's part of our bigger conversation is our maintenance budget. Again, this is going not necessarily to your site, but to all of our sites. We have to identify our maintenance schedule and what our costs are in a more accurate manner so we can budget and put those in there, because I think we undersell what our minimum requirements are, which inflates other areas incorrectly, which then ends up leading to having shortfalls because things are breaking when they shouldn't be breaking. So I know that's part of a bigger picture, but
Well,
yes.
part of that bigger picture is when we're going to talk about the fact that we're willing to put the money in to maintain, but somebody has to have the responsibility to put those gates out to protect those inside lanes. Somebody has to be oversight of the thing in the.
I agree, and I think this is going to be part of our the discussion under the ARs for our rentals, revenues, how things work, and whose responsibility is to do things on the sites, because we don't take care of our things at the level we should, and so we need to clearly identify that. And I agree with you. If we're going to start expending some large dollar amounts to get things up to snuff, I expect them to stay up to snuff and not just run down again because people got lazy and complacent that, hey, they'll just fix it again, because it's not going to happen. So I need to make sure we're all on the same page. Perfect. So board good with that direction? All right? Yep. We'll take care of textbooks another time. We're going to recess because we're out. And we know where to find you. So I'm going to recess the study session. Thank you. We're going to adjourn the Board of Education study session at 6:58.
Well, you got free food tomorrow, 'cause I can use it. Frank, so I just making sure they weren't getting me tonight. Okay. You sound like
I'd like to convene the Board of Education open session at 7:12. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Do we have any public we did not have a closed session. So we're going to go to roll call. All board members are present. Staff is present. And so we're going to go to item number 3, which is the Pledge of Allegiance led by Santa Fe Middle School. If Penny, you can come up and introduce your students.
Actually, they're going to introduce themselves, but these are 2 of my most fantastic 8th graders tonight that we selected because they're just so great. So here we go.
Hello. Hello, my name is Emilio Nesral and I attend Santa Fe Middle School. I will be leading you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the flag salute. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Hey. Hi everyone, my name is Cache Boone. I go to Santa Fe Middle School and I'm in 8th grade. But let me tell you guys, Santa Fe has a wonderful support system throughout this whole school year. They have and still is making sure students continue to try our best and accomplish our goals. Another thing is 8th graders will be going to Magic Mountain and a few other trips to celebrate our great accomplishments before we move on to the next chapter in our lives. Also, in a few weeks, we will be graduating and moving on into high school with all the tools we picked up from Santa Fe. Thank you.
And Santa Fe's new motto is excellence, honor, and Cougar pride.
We make it Cougars. Happen.
If I can just say one thing, I just want to say how much I've appreciated being the interim principal there for the past few months. I love this place. This is a very special school with very special kids and teachers and staff. And I have fallen in love. And it's going to be real hard to leave on June 8th, but I am counting the days, okay?
All righty, we did not have a closed session. We may have a closed session after this meeting. We'll see how time permits. So item G1, do we have any changes to the order of business?
We do not.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval.
Second.
Comments or questions? Ms. Huff?
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board President Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Item H1, Board of Education would like to recognize Ann Battle, Esmeralda Corrales, Tony Ellis, Alicia Escobar, Paul Flores, Lourdes Martinez, Alex Paleo, Sal Perez, Tomasa Rios, and Tiffany Sands in helping contribute to the success of the district-hosted chamber mixer that occurred April 19th. Dr. Throsing?
Thank you, President Wong, members of the board, and the audience. We had a very successful mixer just under a month ago where we had members of the community, and it was really hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. It was so well attended, and the comments were, oh, whose work is this? Oh, you're kidding. It's those of students. And their constant comment was, you guys do such a great job. This is our favorite mixer of the year because the food is so great. And this year we had an opportunity to see amazing work. And so what we wanted to do is recognize those who contributed to its success, because it would not have been successful had it not been for the highlights, identifying the student work, as well as the food, because they were also surprised that this is the food that we serve in our cafeterias. And we took the favorites from our elementary, middle, and high schools. So it was quite a success, and I want to make sure that we recognize those who made it so. So if your name was called, would you please join me up? And I'd like, or actually, why don't I call your names up, because I think that it would be appropriate to do so that way. So beginning with our Dream Food Services team, Esmeralda Corrales. Yeah. Alicia Escobar. Lourdes Martinez. Alex Pelayo. Tomas Rios. Alicia. Lourdes no. Alex. Hello. You guys come over here. You get to stand in the center, and everybody's going to We're missing one. We need Tiffany. You know what? Here, we're going to pretend you're lost. And now with the student work, we have Ann Battle, who helped us with photography. Tony Ellis, whose students from Santa Fe performed so beautifully. Paul Flores, who is preparing for a trip across the ocean with his robotics team at Clifton. Sal Perez, whose wonders in the ceramics department was really eye-catching for everybody. They were standing out in the foyer just marveling at the work. And Tiffany Sands, whose student work, artwork, was also prominently displayed and really garnered a great deal of accolades. So Tiffany, I know I hear a child of yours. You want to, both of you can come up.
That's it. Is that it?
Yeah, those are it. I'll stand over here.
Tonight we have no board member reports, so we will jump down to Ms. Hernandez and the student representative report.
May 15th through the 19th, Casey's Pledge Drinking and Driving Prevention Program. May 18th, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Career Day at Monrovia High School. May 18th at 6:30 p.m. Renaissance End of the Year Rally, Taylor Performing Arts Center. May 19th, Prom at the Belasco Theater at 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. May 20th through the 21st, Monrovia Day Parades. Leadership and other organizations will be participating from Monrovia High School. May 22nd, Math and Science Academy Junior Project Presentation and Award Night, Main Hall, and Taylor Performing Arts Center. May 25th, ASB is having their Throwback Rally. June 6th through the 8th will be finals, and then June 7th, graduation at Monrovia High School at 7 p.m., and June 8th is the last day of school.
Thank you very much. Dr. Throsian?
Thank you. We have a couple of exciting events coming up. First is Monrovia Days Parade and Festival. We hope everybody comes out. I know that we have many, many participants from our schools, our programs, and I'd like to also let you know that the mayor and city council members have challenged you to a rematch in the pie eating contest.
Cheaters.
I have asked them to stay by the rules and compete honestly.
They're not having cheesecake pies this year, are they?
Cheaters.
They're doing some pie tasting to make sure that they get the best pies, only the finest pies.
Yeah, they will. We'll get the one.
Our summer village program registration is now available for the village program during the summer. It will be held at Brad Oaks Elementary School, June 15th through July 14th, and registration also for next year begins next week. And we want to also wish our participants from the village program at Monroe a safe trip over to Sacramento, as they will be addressing the assembly in hopes of having more funding for the program.
More funding is always needed.
And just when you thought it was safe, Mr. Wong. I wanted to also take a moment to recognize all of the teachers in the room. This is a time to recognize and celebrate teachers. I would be remiss, and my mother, also a former teacher, would kill me if I didn't recognize all of the teachers who have contributed to the success of so many of our students. And Monrovia certainly has many for which they can be proud. So thank you, and I'm so thankful that there are so many representatives here in the room.
Thank you, Dr. Therosian. Item 5, public comments for items not on the agenda. The Board of Education encourages public participation and invites you to share your views on school business. Ms. Huff, do we have any speakers?
Board President Wong, I'd like to invite Damon Linder to the podium.
Good evening. I will make this as brief as possible. I moved to Monrovia with my wife in July 2011. Most of the teachers at Wild Rose do know me and my wife, Suzanne Linder. She volunteers constantly at Wild Rose. I would argue sometimes too much, but she does. I've also volunteered. One reason we do that, and we are not the most sociable couple you'll ever meet, is because of the staff, because of the teachers. My 2 children have gone there since kinder and first grade. I've been on school side council and the PTA at Wild Rose since 2011. One of my concerns is the overall morale issue at Wild Rose. There's been a little flux the last year, in the last couple of years. Don't get me started about Swan Math, but we had a change in leadership at Wild Rose, and there was minimal turmoil, but the staff, the teachers, they just stepped up. They stepped up because there was no alternative. They did their job. They didn't wave their arms. There wasn't a lot of, hey, look at me. They just did their job. My job in my industry, I supervise about 5 people. And what I do is I live by kiss down, kick up. I nag, I wheedle, I cajole, I threaten on behalf of my staff. Because I know if I cover them, they will excel for me. That's what I just want to remind the board of. Our teachers, the support staff, they're at the sharp end of the spear. I want them taken care of. It benefits the entire community. Our home sale values go up, they stay up, and I don't want them to leave. I don't want them to finally throw their hands up and go, I'm gonna go somewhere else. It's just, I don't want to sound preachy, and I don't speak often, but this one's important to me. My kids in their formative years have had what I consider some of the best teachers that I've ever come across. And that's why I stay here in Monrovia. We left Pasadena just because of the school issue. So I had to say something because I can't adequately put into words in the next couple minutes how much they've assisted my family. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Huff, do we have another speaker?
Next request to speak comes from Ryan Menlove.
Mr. Menlove?
Dr. Therosian, board members, board president Wong, colleagues, thanks for being here. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak. I don't consider myself the most eloquent speaker. It's not my favorite thing to do, but oftentimes the opportunity comes along and I've been asked to speak tonight, maybe because you hear from Ann Battle an awful lot. And so maybe it's nice to hear from someone different once in a while. But I'm grateful to work for Monrovia. I've been here a long time. I'm a lifelong Monrovian, having gone to schools in Wild Rose, Clifton, the high school, and I'm still there. And I love this place. It's my home, and I intend to continue it to be my home as President Wong walks his dog by my house all the time and realizes that I'm remodeling my house and don't plan on going anywhere. So, and almost done, almost done. However, like all of us, and I put my thoughts down on paper just so I can keep them straight in my mind. Sometimes when I try to speak off the cuff, I tend to miss too many things. So, like all of us here in this room, I'm a person of many hats. We all have many hats that we wear and different roles that we play. I'd like to share some of those hats that I wear with you tonight and my perspective from those. First, let me start with what I consider to be my most important role, the hat that I think fits me the best and that I enjoy the most, and that's being a father. I have, sorry, I was talking about my kids and get all crazy. I have 3 children who attend Monrovia schools. One will be at the high school with me next year. I'm entirely not ready for her to be there, but I think she's ready to be there with me. But it gives me a unique perspective that I think Board Member Williams can share with me at this time, having students currently in the school district as well, and others as well. I know many have had former students or your children that have gone, maybe not long ago, but I think it was a different time. Things have changed a little bit over the last couple of years. My wife is also a teacher in the district. She teaches kindergarten, so I get to fix all of her kindergarten mistakes when I teach seniors and straighten them out, whatever she's done 12 years prior. She'll beg to differ, but because we're in the city and because my wife teaches kindergarten, our pillow talk at night often revolves around school, sometimes too much. And one of the things that comes out, which is disheartening, one of the comments that is oftentimes made is that sometimes we feel sad for our kids, our own personal kids. Sad that they're in school at a time when things are different, when things are challenging, when teachers don't have the time that they used to have to create. They don't have time to plan fun and interesting activities. Instead, they are oftentimes focusing on a new program or focusing on testing because that seems to be the new focus on everything else is testing. They don't have the time or energy to keep pace with all the demands placed on educators today. And all the teachers today try not to let all that encumbers them affect their craft. It's not missed on the kids and it's not missed on my children because I hear it all the time. I hear from my daughter that one's favorite teachers, I won't tell you who you are because I've seen some of you here, who used to make learning fun because they had the time to create and make learning exciting, don't have the time to do so anymore. Instead, they follow scripts. They jump from program to program. Our students, my kids notice this and it affects them and it affects their desire to learn. I would bet that if we were all living in the same reality, we would all want things to change, as my wife and I do. My next hat, I guess, falls upon my teacher hat in teaching at Monrovia High School. I've been there for 17 years, and it seems like just yesterday I graduated, and good to see one of my current students here, and she'll be graduating soon. It feels like I've never left, and in some ways I haven't, but 17 years goes by real fast. I never enjoyed teaching at the first. It was never something that I thought was great. I saw my friends making a lot more money than me, and they saw me having a lot more time than them. But over the years, I started to see the positive impact that I had on my students. I started to see how their lives were changed, and seeing their lives change changed my life. Now, when I talk to two brothers, a brother and a brother-in-law who are both prestigious doctors and making a lot more money than I am, they look at me and see, man, you're really happy. They know I'm not making as much money as they are, but I am. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy seeing Brenda. I enjoy seeing my students on a daily basis. Just yesterday, I had 2 former students visiting me. They wanted to say hi, and interestingly enough, they came to ask about investing. because one of the things we talk about in economics is investing. And that's where it really matters. That's when they come back and I see that there has been a seed planted that they were interested in. And maybe they didn't get it all when they were in high school, but they came back 2 days ago and said, hi, I want to know more about this, because it's always the time of year when they come back, because school's out, they're out of college now and getting ready for the next year. That's really the best part about teaching. These days, I would say, however, that the rewards are still there, but teaching has kind of started to lose its luster. It would be hard to recommend anyone to go into teaching today. I think any of us have probably have been asked that, you know, should I teach? You go into teach and you kind of cringe sometimes at whether or not we should encourage people to teach. We are, today's profession is bombarded by professional development, where we get tools of the trade. However, we are rarely given the time to prepare and collaborate with others about these new strategies before we are evaluated on them and then implementing them into the classroom. Then, before you know it, the next professional development comes along and a whole new program is now rolled out. And we have new tools to learn and no time to learn them. I think this model doesn't seem to make much sense, and it doesn't seem to work for us. It leads to burnout and turnover, and I think two things that I think we're experiencing in our district. Now, there's always the end of the year burnout. I think every year at this time, teachers are getting tired, and I think we all experience that. But I think this is a burnout which has been going on for a couple years now. Too often we try to do too much trying to be like our neighboring towns. I think we try too much to be like Arcadia, or too much to be like neighboring school districts. I propose that we could solve these problems by focusing on just a few initiatives, getting them down, doing them well, before we move on to others. Let's stop being Arcadia, and let's start just being Monrovia. Let's focus on what we do well and make it better. I'll also add that we really have some bright staff members. We could save a lot of money by not throwing money at the latest fads, but by allowing teacher mentors to teach these in-service days that we go to. There are a wide variety of these teachers, and if they are encouraged and appreciated, they would be willing to volunteer. Lastly, let me put on my Vice President of the Teachers Association hat. I've never been a diehard union person. I find myself up here, but it's not something that I necessarily feel comfortable with. There are a lot of times that I disagree with the California Teachers Association, or other unions for that matter. But I became involved in the union because a professor at Point Loma said, you know what, if someday you want to be an administrator, join the union. And I was kind of perplexed by that and followed up with a question. And they said it's because you understand both sides of the table. There's no better way to work with both groups unless you understand both sides of the table. I initially thought that I was on my way to becoming an administrator, and who knows, maybe that will still be in my future. Although I see the time that administrators put in, and I'm going to wait until my kids get a little bit older. In the present, though, here I stand representing some great, brilliant, talented people, educated, wonderful people. However, they are also tired, overwhelmed, underpaid, underrespected, and angry. They want to be treated as though their opinions matter. They want to be asked their opinions before decisions get made, especially for decisions that affect their school site or their own departments. They want to feel heard, respected, and valued. I'm not sure if any of you had the opportunity to read the Tribune 2 days ago. There was a great article about teachers in there, and I'm going to quote just a little bit from that. Quote, enrollment in teacher preparation programs has plummeted 76% over the past decade, and nearly 3/4 of school districts are having hiring difficulties. This is alarming, since teachers are the most important factor in student learning. I put that in bold, and I'm going to read that again. This is alarming, since teachers are the most important factor in student learning. Today's shortage is structural, with nearly 1/3 of teachers departing within their first 5 years and leaving at far greater rates in high-poverty schools. That's 50% higher turnover than is seen among California's brave first responders. According to state data, nearly 4,600 new teachers across all subjects must be hired in Los Angeles County alone this fall. Why can't California attract and retain great teachers? Most feel undervalued for their long hours and difficult work. Following college, the cost of attaining a full credential are daunting when more lucrative options beckon. Many teachers struggle to pay rising rent and take side jobs at restaurants with Uber and lift just to get by in what's increasingly called an exploitable labor force, end quote. Over the past few years, we've had numerous conversations about morale of our teachers. I wish I could say that it has gotten better. There has been some good work done. We have seen a reduction in teachers being pulled out of class. We have seen, in some instances, better collaboration. This is a good step forward, and I would encourage the board and administration to continue on this path. In other areas, however, we are still lacking. Communication across the district seems to be lacking. Teachers want to be communicated with. They want their emails to be responded to in a timely manner, much like they are required to do. I think many concerns can be alleviated by better communication and seeking feedback before decisions are made. And they all want decisions to be thoughtfully made with the big picture in mind. We know that teacher compensation has been a concern for a few years now. Monrovia teachers are working harder and doing more than ever before in the classroom. But know that we are falling behind our colleagues in surrounding districts. Our hard work needs to be not only acknowledged, but rewarded. In other areas, we are still lacking. Communication across the district seems to be lacking. I think a lot of the concerns can be alleviated by simple, old-fashioned communication. We know that salary has been a concern. We know that other districts have done their best to try to raise salary for their staff members. While we saw other districts in the area providing raises to their teachers, we were basically said that if you want a raise, then it's going to be on the backs of teachers. We want Monrovia to stand above the rest, and I know you do too. We want teachers to come to our district and find comfort and a great place to work instead of a place where they feel undervalued and stressed out. This is going to require a paradigm shift. I think you'll be amazed at the transformation that will take place when teachers are given time to create, when they are front and center in decision making and in the budget and not just an afterthought, when they feel communicated with and listened to. We are hopeful that we can turn the ship around, morale problems, and that we can move forward together, that we can solve these problems together, because together we are what makes Monrovia great. After all, the best PR for our district doesn't come from a PR firm. It comes from happy students and happy teachers. Thanks for your time in considering what we have to say.
Thank you, Ryan.
Ms. Huff, do we have any other speakers?
There are none.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to be heard? Hearing none, seeing none, I will move forward to item 6, public comment for items on the agenda's open session. Do we have any speakers?
There are none.
Item I1, report on dual immersion language programs. Dr. Kaiser?
Tonight I am happy to introduce to you Dr. Lily Jarvis, who is the principal of Monroe School, and she's also directing our dual immersion programs in 3 schools, and she's here tonight to share a report with you.
Good evening, Board of Education, President Wong, Dr. Thorosian, and members of the district office. I'm Lily Jarvis, and I am so excited at the opportunity to share with you an update of our thriving dual immersion programs across our district. So our programs are housed at Plymouth Elementary School, Monroe Elementary School, and Clifton Middle School. And this evening I pose a question to you. Why do we bring bilingualism to the children of Monrovia? And the answer is very simple. There is an overwhelming body of knowledge that indicates the benefits of bringing bilingualism to our children. The research studies on bilingualism are clear, and I am going to quote one of my favorite findings from one of the research studies. It says, the bilingual brain is highly engaged in the cognitive challenge of evaluating between two competing language systems, which requires executive functioning and increased active focus. And what does that mean? Essentially, it means that the children learn, as they learn another language, they are going between two different language structures, the syntax, the grammatical structures, the pragmatics of the language, the semantics of the language, and in the case of Mandarin, the tonal expression of the language. And I ask a question for the board with Spanish language in mind. What do an apple, your mom, and scissors have in common? So the answer to this is one that gets to the essence of why we teach children in two languages. Languages have different grammatical structures, different structures as a whole. And in Spanish language, children learn about how Spanish assigns gender to their nouns. Okay, so that's just one of the differences. Another point I want to make is about the benefits of Mandarin to our children. It was very exciting as I prepared for this presentation to learn a little bit about the benefits of Mandarin. It's fascinating because the children are required to make meaning from a character, which they call art, and at the same time listen to the tonal expression, the word that is aligned with that character. It utilizes both sides of the brain. So in other words, the cognitive skills that their children acquire as they learn a second language is phenomenal and to be applauded, because we're bringing wonderful things to our children. I want to make my point about the difference in the tonal expression and the difference between Mandarin language, that really a lot of it is the tonal expression of how things are said, and how that is not necessarily true in English language. In English language is our inflection and how we use verbs and adjectives. And I have enlisted the support of Connie Wu, who is going to model for us. So in Mandarin, the number one is pronounced yi.
Great, you did a good job. So in Chinese character, each pronunciation has 4 terms. For example, number 1, yi. Then your second term is yi, which means move. The third term is yi, which means chairs. The fourth term is yi, which means righteousness.
So, isn't that amazing? How the tonality of how that that is pronounced changes the entire meaning, which changes the character, how it's represented in writing. So, the fact that we're bringing this to our kids in TK is an amazing thing. So I hope that these two very small examples make the point for bilingualism and update you on the wonderful benefits. A little bit about Plymouth. Plymouth, as you know, houses our dual language program in Mandarin. And their enrollment, they began 3 years ago. They began 3 years ago, and on February 2017, that was their 3rd-year anniversary. They offer priority to the Monrovians, and they're also accepting inter and intra-district permits from neighboring cities, and they're currently accepting applications. A little bit about the structure of their program. They have currently 3 teachers, Steve Cook, Mickey Boyle, and Isabel Lynn, and they follow the 50-50 model. They currently have a transitional kindergarten class, and first and second graders. And their hope for their children looking ahead is that by the time that they're in 8th grade, they can pursue a seal of biliteracy. And they have a little video there that you can look into. And I believe it's on their website. The Monroe Spanish Immersion Program houses the district's FLAME program, which is a foreign language academy of Monroe Elementary, which I'm the very proud principal of. It began in 2011, and like Plymouth, it houses both an English track and the dual immersion track, and our Mighty Lions really are the mecca of foreign language in our town. We have 360 students currently, 15 teachers, and compared to the English program, 254 and 9 teachers. So very proud of that. And that just kind of gives you a graphic of the difference of the number of kids in our dual program compared to the English. Our model is a little bit different from the model that Plymouth uses. Ours follows the 90-90 model, and as the kids get older, the percentage of time in the English program increases. So by the time that they're in 4th and 5th grade, they're at 50-50. They learn 50% of their day in Spanish, 50% of the day in English. And a little bit about our demographics. So within the dual immersion students, we have the green slice there are the Monroe residents, so you could see it's about half the slice. And within the district, the blue, we are attracting many of the families that live within the Monrovia Unified School District boundaries. And then we have 56 students who belong to other neighboring districts as far away as Rialto. A little bit about our student academic data. So our program is quite successful. This is data from our reading inventory, which is an assessment. It's a reading comprehension assessment that's administered 5 times over the course of the school year. And you can see that there is a steady growth in the performance of our students. And this is the entire school combined. And the green bar is our June target by the end of this school year, and you can see that by March we had made nice growth in that direction. And in terms of our student projections for next year, as of yesterday, we have currently 118 students listed to enroll, asking for seats for next year, and 41 transitional kindergarten students. So our program is quite robust and certainly interesting to the community. And to conclude with Monroe, as you can see from the picture, it really does appeal to many backgrounds of our students. It's a diverse learning community that engenders a love of learning and language. Clifton, when our children promote from 5th grade to the middle school, Clifton houses the middle school track. And this year was the first year where Clifton took our promoting 5th graders from last year and is instructing them in a track for Seal of Biliteracy in Spanish as well. Their program obviously has some structural differences as well because it's periods. Unlike the elementary school, every student in the dual program at Clifton receives 2 periods of dual, and what those periods are, Spanish elective and history. And if a child would like to take an additional elective course, then they could come and enroll in a 0 period before school, and then they can have an additional elective like art or something like that. And currently, they have the promoting class from last year from Monroe. They have 28 students and 1 teacher. Next year, they are anticipating our promoting class, so those 28 students will move on to be 7th graders. And next year, we'll have another promoting class for a total of 46, and they're going to need 2 teachers because our kids, as they leave Monroe, they're going to the middle school. The students at Clifton, they're engaged in the 21st century skills. They're engaged in the core curriculum. They communicate, they create, they problem solve, they collaborate, and they work hard at the content areas. And for this, I have a wonderful slide that compares the rigors of what the children are doing in Spanish in their history class. And you can see here that the expectation is the same. The children learning in the English program have to produce some kind of a pictorial representation of what they've learned, and the same is expected of the children in our Spanish program in Spanish. So you can imagine the rigors of learning content at the middle school level in a different language. And I want to leave you with this. Learning a second language is not only has cognitive and academic benefits, it also supports a greater sense of openness and appreciation for other cultures, which to me is the main idea. It's not just about making children biliterate in two languages, but also to encourage and promote openness and appreciation for other cultures. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Item 2, student attendance report. Ms. Wu?
Yes. Good evening, President Wang, Board of Education, Dr. Torrencian, Cameron, and staff. The Business Service Department submit report for the 16-17 school year P2 average daily attendance. The state funded district by the number of students attending school every day. So this report, including the first day of school to the 8th 4 months for the school school attendance calendar before the April 15th. So the preliminary number for this school year's average daily attendance is $5,359 and 59.94. So once we collect the Saturday school and extended school year for the special education kids, I anticipate that the final number will be higher. And in addition, just bring to the board attention on the as well as the committee that in tonight's board agenda, we're also including the Form J-13A, which is request the board to approve for the allowance for the attendance because of emergency condition. Once the board approved, this gave additional opportunity to apply waiver for the loss of attendance due to the social media threat happened on March 10th. On the slide, I share the board in the last 5 years, the enrollment, district enrollment versus the attendance. And the green line is the enrollment and the red line is the attendance. So which means that if the district, every student enrolled in the Monrovia come to district every day, which means that the state will give us a full funding. As far as there's a student did not come to school for various reasons, then the funding will be decreased. So, for example, for this school year, at the 16-17, because our enrollment is 5,616, our attendance is 5,359.94. We anticipate that the district will lose around over $1 million because of the attendance. Also, this slide also showed that over the years, our enrollment fluctuated. And in 13-14, we have high enrollment compared with the prior years. And in the next 3 years, our enrollment is lower. Because of the decline in enrollment, which means that compares year over year, the district will receive less fundings. For example, from this year compared with last year, based on the number of students we decline, we anticipate that we will receive less than $1.8 million because we the enrollment, if we including the TK, and students which we get a fractured attendance, then total enrollment on the census day compared with the last school year, we have 222 students less. 232 students less, which I shared with the board earlier, did not include in the TK students. Any question?
So, Ms. Wu, this shows that over the last 4 years, our ADA has declined by about 346 students, or 346 ADA.
Mm-hmm.
How many dollars per year is that, 346? Roughly.
So,
I mean,
roughly, I think 300, more than $3 million.
Over $3 million
Yeah.
less this year than we got 4 years ago, just because of declining enrollment.
That's correct.
And it shows here that 256, we have a absence rate, I guess that's what you would call it, the difference between enrollment and attendance, is about 256 students. So I would assume that would be about $2.5 million, that if every student attended every day, we'd have $2.5 million more than we're getting because of ADA. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I sure hope that the message is getting out to the parents how important it is. How important it is that we have every student in class every day. $2.5 million this year. If every class was in, and if every student was in school every day, we'd have $2.5 million more to help take care of the teachers that we're here asking for us to take care of them. We've lost $3.5 million over the last 4 years. Makes it tough to meet all the budget needs and meet the needs of the students. But that's what's happening across Southern California because of the cost of living and the other costs that are driving people away from the coast to the less costly areas to live. And so I'm afraid we're faced with continued declines and continued declines in our budget, even though you see the dual immersion programs that are doing such a great job of bringing people in here, and we're just continue to add programs after programs to help bring students in and enrich the students in Monrovia. So budget times are tough, and a lot of it's just because the enrollment's going down, and it sure does help when students are in class every day.
These numbers, obviously, you can just look at the chart and see there is a trend that is not in our favor. The one thing that many people may not know is we often, when we do our funding, we get to pick from this year or the previous year, whatever's attendance is higher. So even though the last few years our attendance is dropping, it hasn't hit us as hard as it's going to hit us this time because look at the chart. So if last year we lost $1.8 million because of attendance, and this is just adds on top of it. So it's just not we lost $1.8 million this year. We lose it every single year. So if you want to go back to the high point or say 2013-14, every year we take a loss, it gets compounded the next year. The coming year is a staggering number. So, Connie, Ms. Wu, if our attendance does not improve, what is that last drop going to represent dollar-wise?
So, which means that the last this year, because of declining enrollment, so which means that the next year, if our enrollment is continue decline, then we, as you mentioned, that we were able to take advantage of the higher of the current year and previous attendance. So we will take this year's attendance. If we take this year attendance for next year funding purpose, compared with this year, we will have $1.4 million less.
So $1.4 million less this year, next year than this year. Is that what you're saying? And we took loss of $1.8 million the year before that.
The $1.8 million is based on the enrollment. That's correct. Yes, the estimated enrollment convert to the dollar amount. That's correct.
So in reality, it's not 1.4. Over the last 2 years, it's really dropping about 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that's $3.2 million. Now, we take our budget extraordinarily seriously, and it's an ongoing balancing act. So, Dr. Jackson, this last year, how many layoff notices did we give out?
Board President Wong, we have issued no reduction in force notices.
No reduction in force. The day of reckoning is coming in which we're going to have to make some incredibly difficult choices. And things that Mr. Gilliland had brought up are extraordinarily important. Just by having our kids show up to school and increasing attendance, or taking vacations at the end of the year when we're no longer counting the attendance against our ADA, can drop another $1 million into our budget. So please take these things into consideration as you're planning your vacations to try to move them to the end of the year. If you're not sure if it's going to affect or what you can do to help, ask your principal. Dr. Jarvis has outlined a phenomenal program with our dual immersion. That was 56 students. So 56 students is equivalent to how much money?
56 students. Okay, let me just do $500,000.
So $500,000 is coming to additional revenue because we are going out in trying to find new things that not only that benefits our children, but helps generate revenue. And one of the other things we are looking to do in the very near future is Code to the Future. We're restructuring one of our middle schools to take advantage of a huge area of need. So we will continuously be adjusting as we can. But these are the type of struggles that everybody needs to keep in the forefront of their minds when we're asked questions of how are we going to, you can fill in the blank. There's no shortage of things that we need to get done and want to get done. There's no shortage of things that we do extraordinarily well and we do not want to cut back on. So please keep this in mind. Any other comments or questions?
Just one question, Ms. Wu. May we have, maybe this week is too early, but by a week from Friday, may we see what neighboring districts are looking at as far as their decrease in enrollment as well? I'd like to know how this corridor is stacking up.
What do?
Thank you. Item J, consent agenda. Routine items of business are placed on the consent agenda, have been carefully screened by members of staff and will be acted upon by the board with one motion upon a request from any person. Item on the consent agenda may be considered separately at its location on the meeting's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any items to be pulled, just in case? Hearing none. Ms. Huff?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board President Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item K, K1, public review of textbook, of recommended textbook. Dr. Kaiser.
Board President and Board, I'm very pleased to bring to you tonight three books that we would like to put on public display that we would like to have out and recommendation for adoption. These books are books for our early college programs. So as you're talking about programs that are marvelous here in Monrovia, our early college program is one of those. These are textbooks for those courses. Next, we'd like to put on display Perry Ann's Story and Structure and Introduction to Fiction, and Kay Chevry, 1 and 2 for the early college courses English 101 and Spanish 1 and 2 prior to adoption.
Any comments or questions?
Those will be available in the lobby here. Will they be available anywhere else for review?
They'll be available here in the lobby.
That's at the district office.
Board President, was this part of the study session that we did not conclude?
Yes, textbook was
we're
the
going to
item,
vote?
fourth item, and no, we were talking big picture on our overall textbook expenditures and planned expenditures for the coming years.
Okay.
This is a specific book for a specific
Stand corrected, thank you.
purpose.
And that specific purpose is our college courses.
Yes.
Is this our first college course book that we're putting on?
No, it's not. We've had several as we're starting our complete cohort next year with 30 students beginning as freshmen at Monrovia High School that will also be in a dual program receiving credit for college and high school at the same time. When this group graduates, they will have 2 years of college under their belt as well as their high school diploma.
And with these three, how many courses does that bring us up to that were
I don't have that in my mind.
6 or 7 already?
Yes, uh-huh.
That's great.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board President Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And if it's okay with the board, if we hear no comments, we'll put on the consent agenda next time around. Perfect. Item 2, resolution of assignment of delinquent tax receivables. Ms. Wu?
Yes. Again, the Business Service Department requests the board to approve the resolution of the Monrovia Unified School District assigning the delinquent property tax receivable to the California Statewide Delinquent Tax Finance Authority for fiscal year end of June 30, 2017, 18, 19. Actually, the board has approved this resolution in the previous years. The district has been with this JPA since 2004. The purpose of this JPA is to finance the community property delinquent tax receivable under the Assembly Bill 838, later become the law under the California Government Code 6516.6, which the JPA would receive the benefit for the penalty and interest as a result of late payment of a property tax that will be treated as the district general fund instead of the regular tax property receivable against the state funding aids. So this JPA will work with the Tower Capital Management LLC and will put the risk-free package, including all the districts within this JPA, which is the majority of LA County School District, will pass this resolution to participate. And under this proposal, the district were able to receive upfront for 110% of the property tax delinquent which is assigned to this JPA. I have also put to the board the history of the past several years, how much the money the district received by participating in this JPA.
To do a quick summary, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correct.
Mm-hmm.
First, this is something we do every single year. And this is specific to taking care of delinquent property taxes, and instead of waiting for them to be paid, we assign them to the JPA, who then fronts us basically the money that we would have collected had everybody paid their taxes on time. But in addition to that, since you don't pay your taxes on time, you get penalties and interest charged. They give us those fees as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Got that money as regular taxes, the state would take $1 from general fund for every dollar we got. But if we get it this way, they don't take that dollar away. So it's like double dipping.
Your state government at work.
Legal.
So should we advocate for
More delinquent taxes.
I don't think we have to prod too many people. Any other comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Huff?
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board President Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 3, resolution in honor of Monrovia School Nurse Day. Dr. Therosian?
I will defer to Dr. Jackson, who has a presentation prepared.
Board President Wong, yes indeed. Today marks a day that I'm asking the Board of Education to adopt a resolution declaring May 10, 2017 as the Monrovia Unified School District School Nurse Day to recognize and honor the contribution of school nurses to quality education in the state of California in the Monrovia Unified School District. And I can assure you our students and staff are in great hands on a daily basis.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions?
Comments. What do we do for the nurses?
We will actually be having a celebration here at the end of this week to celebrate them.
Thank you. I'd like to be in attendance.
You will be invited.
Mr. Williams is sensing cake.
And appreciation.
And appreciation. Sorry about that, T. But cake's good too. Depending on the cake, will equal the appreciation. Board policy 5111.
Take a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We got
Ms.
to vote
Huff?
on that.
Forgive me. My comment threw him off.
I know. That's all right.
The cake.
Squirrel.
Motion.
Oh,
I'm sorry?
Motion.
that was Ed and Rob seconded.
Sorry. Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board President Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Board policy 5111, admissions. Dr. Throws?
I'm back again.
Oh,
Board President Wong.
just kidding.
The Board of Education is requested to adopt Board Policy 5111, admission, and accompanying administrative regulation as recommended by the California School Board Association. This policy was brought for first reading at the April 26, 2017 board meeting. The Student Support Services Department has conducted its annual review of the department's board policies and administrative regulation is presenting a policy for review and approval.
And to add to Dr. Jackson's comments, because this policy is so closely related to policies about district residency as well as student records, those two policies will be updated next in order to reflect these changes. Finally, in the administrative regulations section, there will be a couple of changes made which we will present to the board on Friday. As administrative regulations are not necessarily board approved, I would like to take an opportunity to review what they are. The administrative regulation here is very specific to kindergarten and first grade, and what we'd like to do is generalize it to any student and add to it that evidence of a student's age for the placement in a classroom or in a grade level would also include the submission of transcripts. But the specific language will be presented to you on Friday.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions? Ms. Huff?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Williams?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Board President Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 5, pending board issues. Dr. Jackson? I mean, Dr. Throsian? Sorry.
Thank you, President Wong. I would like to call your attention to two items. The facilities master plan, an RFP will be developed once scope of work is submitted to the board and we receive direction. So the progress is really kind of at a standstill right now, but the scope of work will be presented to the board in the coming weeks for some additional guidance. And finally, in terms of our legislative policy, what I would like to do is just note that Senate Bill 751 passed in the Senate on a 38-0 vote, and it's heading to the Assembly. This bill, or the Senate bill, addresses the cap, the reserve cap, and the need to eliminate such a cap from district reserves.
Good.
Any items to be added or subtracted? Okay, we will move on to old business, which is our next regular board meeting. Or excuse me, we'll have a joint meeting on May the 16th at 4:30 p.m. And then on the 24th, our regular meeting will start at 7, but I'm sure we'll have a study session and start a little bit earlier. Item M, new business. We have a number of things going on around town. Check out our website and you can see dates and times. And with that, we'll adjourn. You know, we're going to recess the regular board meeting and go to open a closed session at 8:23.
And for the record, Mr. Wong, I will not be here at the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
So noted.